And welcome back, everyone, to the Optum Care Community Centers. It's Ben Brock, and today we have Alison that's going to join us for another art exercise class. For today's fun class, you'll need a pen, pencil, and piece of paper. And if you have it, you can either have a brush with some ink or even some dark colored paint. So go ahead and gather up those supplies and meet us back here for this fun art class.
Welcome. Today we're going to look at value patterning, otherwise known as Notan, N-O-T-A-N, which is an Asian reference to harmonizing lights and darks. So what I want to do today is take you through some really simple exercises that are fun, analyzing the lights and darks as a compositional kind of bones or structure for your artwork. Okay, let's get started on this. So we're looking at a design concept using value patterns. And a lot of times when you're creating sketches for your painting, your drawing that you want to further study, you want to do it in terms of arranging your lights and your darks. In Asian work, this concept is called Notan, so feel free to look that up online. This is a beautiful example of an Asian piece that uses that idea of integrating light and dark. And indeed, this almost resembles what you would call your yin-yang symbol. And when you're dealing with yin-yang, you've got a dark and a light. And the light is interpenetrating the darkness, and the darkness is likewise interpenetrating the light. So thus these two dots are very important, as is this kind of movement. So when we look at compositions, we want to note the arrangement of the lights and darks. So please feel free to look this up. In Asian art, it's called harmonizing your light and your dark. When we look at it in terms of Western art, it is, in a sense, more like looking at value patterning. This is a great example from Richard Diebenkorn. And here you really see the darkness of the room and then the lights interpenetrating the darkness. So what I'd like you to do is have fun and find a master work or composition that you like. And you can go online to find it, or you can look in your art books, History of Art. I've got a History of Art book over here. And this particular composition is pretty famous. It's by Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres. It's called The Small Bather. And in this quote here, it's done in 1826, and he says, a good painter will look at the whole and think of it as like a whole or a gestalt when they're thinking of the painting. And one way to do this is to analyze it in terms of your value pattern or your lights and darks. So to do this exercise, I prefer using a brush and ink, but I'm going to demo one with a pen in case you don't have a brush and ink. So what you're going to do is look at your overall composition, the whole thing, as a rectangle. So you're going to draw out your rectangle as close enough to the dimensions that it exists as. And then you're going to look at, wow, this almost looks like a yin-yang, the way this bather is perched on the edge here and the movement of it. So in a sense, I want you to be quite specific, but not picky. Like, I don't want you to have this sense of, oh, I can't do this because I can't get it perfect. But I'm looking at these shapes, and, oh, I went off the page here. I might have to redo my rectangle. So when you're doing this, you're going to be, I'm just, for brevity's sake, I'm going to use the brush and ink. So I've got my edge here of the bather, and this is my dark, right? Coming in, and she's cutting into the darkness, or you could say the darkness is cutting in to the light. So you can see this beautiful shape. And there's little bits of light interpenetrating the darkness, which you can note maybe in brevity, because our main shape is here. And then you're going to come in and find the other side. And what I love here is there's this little curl of her ear that you kind of want to note, and then this beautiful shape coming down. And then it's intersecting with this other figure here, this woman with her head in her hand. So I'm not getting super picky. I'm getting the main shapes here, because this is going to give me an understanding of the overall composition as a whole, just like Unger said. You want to see the whole piece. So this is coming in. Oh, here's some darkness interpenetrating the light right here. So this is all noting this value pattern, this structure of the composition. And this is coming through here. Oh, there's some light down here. I want to use that shape. It's almost like a ballast, counterbalance of this serpentine shape. So there's a lot of kind of action in this, even though it's a very kind of relaxed piece. In a sense. So I'm just finding, I don't want to get too picky with this, because I want it to be an exercise that you will actually do. If you analyze it, if you get too detail orientated, you'll just, you might miss the big picture here, which is to see how the value shapes, the yin and the yang, are interpenetrating each other. And it's a lot of fun to do. And honestly, doing this, you will understand the artist a whole lot more. Oh my gosh, I see this kind of serpentine shape, this beautiful movement, and then this kind of hanging on this side, and this kind of triangular shape here too. So very rough, but instructive analysis in terms of notan, okay? So there's one. And I find this, like, we come up to the head, of course, and I missed some of these beautiful shapes, but I have the main feeling, the main flow here of the female bather, the small bather as it's titled. Okay, so I want to do another one, and then I'll do one from life. The other one, I'm going to go forward in time to Henri Matisse, another incredible person to look at in terms of composition. He's considered very decorative, but he's solid. He does solid compositions. So I really like this one. It's called Studio Quasar Michel. It's done in 1916. So it's basically another odalisque in a studio setting this time. So again, I'd like you to find this, frame your piece. We're working within a rectangle. You can do that more carefully if you wish. And then I'm going to start, so if you squint at this, it has some tones like this red. You could say, wow, is that light or dark? What about these benches? Well, this is specifically light, so I'm going to leave in there against a dark. So you can start to see the structure, and then you can decide which ones in terms of the middle tone you're going to place in the dark or in the light. So there's some kind of choices here that you're going to make in terms of your structure. So I'm not going to get into details. I'm going to, okay, where is that placed? I'm eyeballing it. I might be a little bit off, but if I don't just kind of get in there and begin, you know, it's going to kind of defeat the purpose of this exercise, which is to kind of see how these are interrelating in terms of light and dark. Fun? Okay, so we're going to just darken. The reason I like the ink is because I can just darken these areas very quickly. You can do this with pencil. So I'm looking at the relationships between this rectangle. I come down, oh, this is at an angle here, right? So that suggests dimension in space. So Matisse can be very flat, but this one has a sense of room, and he's also got a really nice jazzy feeling in here of movement, kind of staccato, jazzy, bebop feeling. Okay, so relative to here, you know, I'm going to put my odalisque in here. Where's the light? And I'm not going to get too picky. I'm not going to, because I'm just finding these shapes, right? I'm finding the light and the dark, the yin and the yang. How are these setting up the structure for the composition? Okay, so I've got this openings of the window and this circle here. So there's the circle, and there's some openings. It's just really fun because then you start to understand a little bit about the artist and how, you know, he's working, how he's seeing, oh, there's another diagonal there. So things you might miss if you're not doing this exercise, how the structure is set up. Super fun. And I think, you know, do it pretty quick, because then you can go through a few, you know, artists and see how they do it. I'm going to suggest this red is dark. I'm going to go dark there, and I'm going to make this little wedge here light. So some of this is a little bit arbitrary, but I'm finding the structure and the kind of the music, if you will, in composition. Super fun. I hope I'm making this so you really want to do it. So it's not about like, oh, reproducing this composition, is it? It's about understanding his structure, understanding how he is, Matisse, is creating a composition in terms of lights and darks. We're not even talking about color. You know, color rests on the value patterning. And every color, of course, has its own intrinsic value. So there's just a couple of really quick studies, fun. I want to make it so you actually do these, because they will benefit your ability to compose a composition within a frame. Okay, so now I want to switch to actually doing this from life. Okay, so I've got my setup. I love Chardin because he did still lifes. I'm just going to do a simple still life. And apples are a great subject because they're simple, they're gorgeous, they're round, they've got a beautiful shape. You can use lemons or whatever, but have something with a nice form to it. So how are we going to divide this up into light and dark? Well, you get to make a lot of your own decisions. I've got a light source coming in. I've got some shadows. I also have the local value on the apple. There's light and dark on the apple itself, local value. And then I have value caused by shade and shadow. So there's a lot of kind of differences that you can get into in terms of subtlety. But what we want to do with the notan is get the structure. Get the absolute lights and darks and we can deal with the subtleties later. Okay, so I'm going to again make my frame, and I do like using the pen and ink and the brush and ink. I think it shows up better than a pencil for this purpose. So I have my frame. So I'm just going to go right in and decide, some of these might come out of the frame, but I'm going to put, I'm going to try to keep this inside the frame if I can. And what we want to do is kind of squint at it and see, where are my darks? So where are the darks in here? And you're going to note that. And actually the dark in this case is the negative shape, right? And then I'm going to go to the positive shape here of the apple and pull this dark edge around. And then it meets the rim of the bowl and it gets dark here, coming down. So it's a very playful way of finding your composition, but it's super helpful. It's like it takes you right into it. And it's fun. You can you can switch this around. So so I've got my dark against my light against my dark. I'm not going to fill in, complete all these forms. I'm just trying to find some arrangement in here of lights and darks that is pleasing. Harmonizing, as they would say in Asia. The harmony, the balance of light and dark. And I'm using this Asian brush because I just find it really comfortable. If you find a pen and ink more comfortable, go for that. I think usually we are more comfortable with a pencil because it's familiar. But this has the nice advantage of going quickly and giving you a really nice high contrast right away. So with a pencil, often we get into doing the gradations, and this gives us an absolute dark and light. So here's a gap, and I'm going to put in my other dark here. And, it might not, I'm not loving this composition, but it's fine. It'll work for now. But I'll probably say, well, let's do another one. Let's try another one. And they all seem a little even, so maybe I'll do a little cropping here. Have one coming off the edge. So you can play with the edge, play with the balance of light and dark. I might lose my edge of my apple by putting this shadow in here of the cloth. It looks like I've got a little wave of table in here that makes it a little bit more interesting. This corner is dark. And if you want to look at someone who does amazing still lifes, look at Chardin. He's just so natural in his approach to it. Okay. So let's see. Finish this edge here just so it doesn't feel like I'm falling off the world. And an edge here. So here I've got my inner penetration of light and dark. It's an okay composition. I would probably do it again just to see if I can get something a little bit more dynamic. But I've got my nice heavy kind of grouping here, and then its relationship of these other apples to the form. So this is the understructure of a composition. And I would probably, if I were to do this, I'd do a few variations just to play around with it. So please try it on your own. Try finding a masterwork that you like and analyze it. Don't overanalyze it. Just look at it in terms of light and dark, and the middle tones you decide, are those going more towards the light or towards the dark? You can make that decision, and then you will have an insight and understanding of the way people compose. This composition is quite different than this one. This is a romantic artist, very curvilinear. This is pretty jazzy, like very, very much about geometric forms and elongated rectangles. This is about kind of rolling, about different rounded forms in space. So you can actually see kind of the bones of the composition. And it's super fun to do. Do a lot of them. Make it playful. Don't get too into detail. And just see how your composition develops from there. Thank you.